So again, Jason Harris, Economic Development Manager with the City of Santa Monica, here to present a very short PowerPoint, about 10 slides in total, really highlighting the 5 areas that the City Council was seeking feedback on. To give it a broad overview before we begin, the City Council has been evaluating for the past year an increase to the minimum wage and really tracking the proposals and the process that the City of Los Angeles and LA County have gone through. We presented in September of 29th, just a few months back, a proposed minimum wage increase to the City Council. And they were in support, but they did want feedback and input into 5 areas that I'll review tonight. The order of the evening is, again, the short presentation. I'll give a high-level overview of the issues. And then we have feedback sheets here on the 5 areas. And after the presentation, we'd like folks that have comment, any questions, if they of any of the areas that we're seeking feedback, please come and write your comment. We'll also have staff available at each station to help answer any questions, provide any clarity in regards to the various provisions that we're seeking. And then we'll end the night with a public comment period. And I'm going to move the microphone at that point in time kind of towards one of the aisles and would ask everyone just come up to take their turn and come up and make comment. We'll keep it at a time limit just so we don't go indefinitely. And just ask you to speak into the mic because we are recording this. City TV is here tonight, and they'll be recording this, and we'll make this available online. So with that kind of housekeeping, let me really begin the presentation. So the proposed minimum wage, as you all may have followed, the City of Los Angeles and the County of Los Angeles have adopted a minimum wage increase. And it is moving to $5 over a 5-year period of time. You can see the schedule thereof. And just for background purposes, the City of Santa Monica does not have a minimum wage established, and so we fall under the state minimum wage, which currently is $9 an hour. The state minimum wage is increasing on January 1st to $10 an hour. So if you just to get in perspective, really talking $10 becoming January is the state minimum wage, and then the proposed increase, again, this is overall the council's intent and direction is to generally mirror the City of Los Angeles' minimum wage and the City of Los Angeles hotel minimum wage, and they have 2 different ordinances related to minimum wage overall. And so for the minimum wage, this is the schedule they're looking that has been adopted, the City Council is considering. There's some exceptions, ultimately some deferrals for 1 year for businesses and nonprofits with less than 25 employees have a 1-year delay in the schedule that's laid out. And then nonprofits that have specific programs or majority of grant funding have a year deferral as well. And then 2022, at that year, moving forward, the minimum wage will be indexed to an overall kind of consumer price index. So the outstanding issues that the council, when they were considering adopting the minimum wage in September, that they wanted additional feedback, there was a lot of great testimony from those here in the audience and others in the community, were in these 5 areas: service charges, seasonal worker exemption, paid leave, education and enforcement, and then the hotel wage. And this is a wage specific to hotels. And when I get to that slide, I'll give you a little background related to that. So service charges. The 3 areas highlighted there were what we see as common themes: transparency, distribution of a service charges to workers, compliance concerns. But I have some notes here related to service charges as well, just to kind of clarify kind of existing law within service charges that will, I think some folks may be sometimes getting slightly confused as to service charge. One, if the service charge is looking to be established, defined, is if a business, again, voluntary, this is not a requirement of the minimum wage, this is just defining that if a business establishes a service charge or already uses service charges within their billing, that service charge that is collected is distributed to the employees that provide that service. And again, this is would be voluntary if it's not a mandate that businesses establish a service charge. It would just be defining that if they did a service charge, there would be clarification. And the other kind of descriptions related to service charge that may sometimes cloud the issue is that, per state law, tips as voluntary payments are the property of the employee. And unlike tips, service charges, mandatory payment, and other mandatory surcharges are the property of the employee. So this is currently in state law. And then the idea of a tip credit, so if tips are pooled, and that the idea of that if a business might be considering using that tip as income towards paying the employees' wages, that's not allowed in state law. In some states it is, but not in California. So the ordinance in this specific provision would not change anything related to the concept of a tip credit that I just referenced. And that additionally, that imposing or using a service charge, this is discretionary, again, on the business, but we would just be clarifying in the language of the ordinance that if an establishment, a business, chooses to create a service charge, that charge is, again, distributed to the employees. So this is one area that we're seeking feedback again tonight. So after the presentation, service charges are right here on the board and would seek comment and as well as question. Seasonal workers. So the concept of seasonal workers, again, this is one provision that is proposed. So again, there's the definition of what would constitute a seasonal employee, and then what would constitute a potential employer that would hire seasonal workers is defined there. So employees working under a temporary services agreement, working less than 6 months in a 12-month period, an employer that hires at least 50 employees, paying the minimum wage at 35 hours a week or more would be kind of the two elements that would constitute a seasonal worker employer condition. And then elements of consideration, obviously feedback on those two definitions, but then additional ideas that would like feedback on length of time as defined, if there's other seasonal recreational employers that may benefit from this exception, how to address those issues. So again, this is kind of highlight to get you thinking as I go through the 5 areas. Sick leave. Paid sick leave. So again, a new provision, state law, just went into effect this past July, was that employers are now required to provide 3 days of paid sick leave. And businesses are in the process of accommodating that if that wasn't within their personnel policy prior. And so the idea that council's considering is a potential increase beyond the state mandate of 3 days. And so the idea is how many more days and under what kind of provisions and conditions. And if there is an increase, should it be phased? And then any other variations, accrual and carryover, all of that we're seeking feedback back on tonight. Education enforcement, there was a lot of discussion and interest about having a really comprehensive education program to help communicate the workforce, communicate and educate the employers about the provisions and the increase. And we do this with many of our codes and laws that we try and intent with education before there is an enforcement. And so ideas and input as to how best to communicate and educate to the public at large, the businesses, if there's organizations that can help in that process, and then any ideas on best practice for an enforcement standpoint. The last area of the 5, and again we've got sections up on the various display boards, is on the hotel worker wage. And so this is again the City of Los Angeles ordinance in effect today. It is at $15.37 an hour, and they have a tiered system. So last year, well, initially it went into effect for hotels around the airport, LAX, and then the second tier was hotels of 300 rooms and up, went into effect last year, and then just recently 150 rooms and up went into effect. And so the council's considering a similar ordinance to be adopted of hotel workers, associated operations for hotels, that employees would make $15.37, and the idea is Would there be tiers? Should this be across the board for all hotels? Would this be phased in? Any input and feedback related to hotel operations are kind of the input that we're seeking. And then just overall to understand process. So we've been in this kind of going out to stakeholder groups for the past several weeks. And the intent is we're going to council in early January with a recommendation and all of this feedback to present to council for their consideration. So with that, I promised you a short presentation. I just delivered one. We would like to take, again, we're not going to have a really strict timeline. There is a fair amount of people here tonight. So again, we've got boards set up, and we have a number of staff here that will be at the information displays, again, to answer questions, seeking your written comment. If you want to send comment to us electronically via email or in other means, again, we're open to all of that. And then, we'll say in approximately 20 to 30 minutes, we'll kind of gauge the flow of feedback. We'll take public comment here towards the end of the time tonight. And again, we have this room booked for the next hour and a half. And with that, I'll kind of ask us to all provide input, at least through these boards and means, and then we'll come back to take comment. Thank you.
Okay, so as I referenced earlier in the presentation, we're going to take public comment now, and we've got two speakers and two microphones, excuse me, and I want to explain those. One on the stand is for our city TV, who's doing an audio video recording of this, and we'll post this to our website. You can get to the minimum wage You can get to the minimum wage website through the city's website, the main website, smgov.net. You just scroll down through about the middle of the page, you'll see minimum wage, hyperlink, and it'll take you. I'd give you the website address, but it is like 45 characters long, so smgov.net. So this microphone is not amplified, the one in the stand, and so I'm going to stand here in adjacency with the handheld mic, and so you'd be speaking into two mics. One mic that's amplified, the one I'm using now, and the other is a direct feed to the audio-video recording. So with that, we're not a council meeting, but we do want to kind of retain some level of decorum and order, and so I'm going to time the public comment, allow everyone approximately 2 minutes, and ask everyone to be respectful of the commentators, I think following similar civil discourse, no cheering and clapping and things of that nature, preferably, just so folks are comfortable in speaking. And again, this isn't the only avenue. Again, you can still go up and write on the comment sheets. I have business cards if you just want to email me directly. So we're taking comment in all forms and fashion, but really at this point, open for folks to come forward and make comment. So with that, anyone?
Good evening. My name is Reina Oriana, and I was the lead researcher on the UCLA Labor Center study on young workers in retail and restaurant industries in Los Angeles that we are releasing next week. Young workers are an essential part of the workforce, making up 1/4 of all workers in Los Angeles. Many think young people work for pocket change and use that as an excuse to provide low wages and unstable schedules. In our research, young people play a key role in supporting families and paying for things like rent and school. We also found young workers face erratic schedules and have to rearrange their lives around their employers' needs. This happens a lot during certain peak seasons like summer. In our survey of over 500 workers, we found half of young workers saw their hours changed in the summer and half saw a change during the winter. Also, our study found that 20% workers have been hired into temporary jobs. Just because summers are hopping for hotels, restaurants, and bars in Santa Monica, young workers shouldn't be bounced around with their schedules or exploited to cover all the tourist needs. We're not just workers, we're also family members, parents, and students who need more stable and reliable hours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a question. Could you turn the mic around so we can see the
I was going to do that. Wasn't the intent that people have their backs faced.
Right.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
evening. My name is Vivian Rothstein. I'm a longtime resident, 30-year resident of Santa Monica, and I'm speaking in support of the hotel minimum wage, making it consistent with the city of Los Angeles. I used to actually work for the city in a time when we decided to promote the creation of the tourism industry and the hospitality industry. We put a lot of city resources into it, and it's been hugely successful. But the residents of Santa Monica expect those jobs to be well-paying jobs, good jobs where people can support their families. I think that if the community realized that these were low-wage jobs in hotels and were not set at the same standard of Los Angeles, that we wouldn't feel as sympathetic given the impact of tourism on Santa Monica. But I wanted to mention one other thing. I got a mailing this weekend about the minimum wage campaign here, and I got push-polled on the phone, and I understand that people are going door knocking, and I did some research on the organization, the Enterprise Freedom Action Committee, and it turns out it's an AstroTurf organization based in Washington, D.C., run by someone named Richard Berman, who calls himself Dr. Evil. And he gets funded to run these AstroTurf organizations by the tobacco industry, the liquor industry, by the fast food industry, and he creates these fake organizations that are nonprofits. So there's a tax exemption, and then he pays himself high wages to run these campaigns. So I just wanted to express my outrage that this group is pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into an issue that should be a local issue that the citizens and voters of Santa Monica have a right to discuss and decide ourselves. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
I'm Marcia Jacobs, and I'm a small business owner in Santa Monica, and I'm a little confused about minimum wage is where you begin working. It's where you start from, and as an employer, if I have a good employee, I want to pay them more because I want to keep them. But minimum wage was never designed to support a family of 4 or 5 or 10. And most people that take minimum wage jobs are not, they're not career jobs. My employees aren't looking for a career. I'm at the beach, we're seasonal, I pay them if it rains, I pay them if it's sick, because I want to retain them. But minimum wage is minimum, it's where you begin from. And if an employee is good, you want to pay them more, and it's an incentive for an employee to do a better job. If they're guaranteed a high income, there's no incentive to improve themselves, and you're just enabling them to stay where they are and not improve their life.
Hi, I'm Vivian Foreman. I'm the Executive Director of the Hospitality Training Academy in Santa Monica. We're a nonprofit funded to do workforce development to help people move into the hospitality sector and food services industry in Santa Monica. We're here in support of really making sure that people can live and support themselves, not necessarily a family of 4, but certainly themselves in Santa Monica. And I think that a lot of our issues and what we see is that people who are making $15.37, it's hard enough to support themselves in Santa Monica, let alone less than that amount of money. So it really is our desire to make sure that people can live in this city, even those who are single, alone. You can't live on $10 an hour in Santa Monica. It's almost impossible to find an apartment where you can live. So we really are hoping that people do get the minimum wage. We do feel that the minimum wage is a place. It's not everybody recognizes somebody who does a great job at the level they should, and it is sometimes those jobs that 15-37 are the beginning step in a career ladder, but we do believe in those career ladders.
Hi, my name is Mondo Taco.
The battery.
Yeah, I'm not paranoid or anything, but just wanted to say that, well, first of all, I think it's obvious that since In the county of LA are moving towards the kind of minimum wage that we're talking about, that obviously employers here would be losing some of the best people to LA city and county around here if we weren't able to match them. And I guess there seems to be a willingness, what I've sensed in the city, to understand that and accept that. The one specific thing I want to talk about is the service charge issue. I was in a restaurant last week. It's a restaurant owned by a company that has several restaurants in the city. And I got my check at the end of the meal, and it said 3% service charge. So I asked the server, I said, what's the service charge for? Because, my first thought was it was in lieu of a tip. And if it was in lieu of a tip, I wanted to know that. So she told me that it was the employer was provided using the, well, I can speak up. That the employer was using the 3% to provide sick leave for the employees. And I didn't know enough to ask how many days, because apparently the state law requires 3 days now. I didn't even know that. But at any rate, the point is that whatever we do in Santa Monica, it seems to me that there's two things. One, I've heard stories in other cities where the service charge under state law goes to the employer, it's the property of the employer, and the employer has the discretion of distributing it however they want. Ideally, they would distribute it to all the employees fairly. But there have been cases around the state where employers have been keeping the money or distributing part of it or whatever. So I think we need to think about that in the ordinance that we adopt in Santa Monica. And the other thing is I think we need to make it clear to people that if there is a service charge, if it's not going for tips to the servers, the diners need to understand that. So there needs to be much more clarity and maybe specifications in the law about what service charges are, what they are, and what the rules are for them, so it'll be clear to the diners and public or anybody else running into a service charge issue what it's all about.
Hi. I'm here all night. Hey guys, I'm Hunter and I'm with the Santa Monica Neighborhood Restaurant Coalition. Thank you, Jason and Andy and everybody in the city staff. You guys have done a great job. I really appreciate it. Been really helpful throughout this whole process. We're really in favor of the $15 an hour wage. We want everybody to make more money. We want everybody to have happy lives. Regarding the service charge, which is a point of contention, the gentleman in the back, I think he's absolutely correct, and I think any reasonable restaurateur would agree with you. I think there does need to be more clarity with all that, and I think that you'll find that a lot of the restaurants using a service charge currently do exactly that. I think I showed another gentleman in here today an example of a menu where it's clearly printed on the bottom, what it's for, where it goes, and I think that accomplishes everybody's objectives. We've sent some suggested language to the city staff regarding the definition of a service charge and how it should be used in all restaurants and all businesses that we think accomplishes everyone's objectives of transparency. And we hope that sheds some light on it and we can all reach common ground. Thank you all.
Yeah, hi. My name is Sullivan, and I've been in Santa Monica in the restaurant business for the last 27 years. Yeah, we're totally in support of $15 an hour. This is not an issue whether we are fighting $15 an hour. We want all our employees to have the ability to lead a life they can afford. The issue we have is with service charge. We want to make sure that if there is a 20% service charge, there has to be transparency. There should be in the window of the operation what the policy is as far as service charges, and the employer should have the ability to pay or to distribute the service charge to all the employees, because you really want the heart of the house employees to have the benefit. Those employees who should be getting these benefits, and not just these servers who are used to, in many restaurants, making anywhere between $25 to $45 an hour in addition to minimum wage of $15. So that's a really important point. And I want the city to really understand that, because we've been really in favor of the back of the house being able to enjoy $15 or $18 an hour. And another factor that we need to take in consideration, when you go up to $15 an hour, the employer has to suddenly pay all the employer taxes on $15 an hour. It's the FICA taxes, the workers' comp. So part of that service charge the employer should be allowed to be able to use towards those taxes as well. I am totally not encouraging, and I wouldn't support an employer keeping any part of that service charge other than to improve the lives of the employees and going towards the wages and the taxes to support those wages. Thanks.
Just have the dual mics.
When I was a kid and you bought something, you never had to pay extra for a warranty. Everything just kind of came with it. And I always resent it now in this modern era where you buy something and then 2 seconds later they say, yeah, but if you actually want to have a warranty, you got to pay another X number of dollars. And I kind of feel the same way about the service charges. I'm not in that industry. I don't know, Jack, you know what about it. But it just seems to me like charge your price to cover your costs. Don't then hit me with some weird service charge, which now we have to get into all this political fight about whether it's there to screw the workers or not. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know why it even exists. It's just not honest business to me. And I don't like going into a business and then hearing something at the end, there's this new charge I didn't have. I think most Santa Monicans, people move here because we have a more progressive way of life. I will go in, yes, I have some economic privilege, but I will go pay places for clothing where they hire people and they pay them fair wages. I'm happy to do a little bit extra and actually let my dollars speak for my values. And I think that rather than people starting to organize for a referendum, as Vivian already referenced, which is going to just be not cool, I would like to see this negotiation work out well enough, come to something that works for all of us. And I think this is something we can actually use to help business and be proud of and speak like this is something that we do in Santa Monica. Okay, I'm getting a call. I guess I gotta go. Anyway, so and the other thing is, how much time do I have? The other thing is on supersession, you know what? It would be one thing if we lived, it's not just a matter of whether the living wage is enough when you talk about like the basic things that should be in a society. What about universal health care? What about universal basic income? There are things that in 10 or 15 years from now are progressive changes that are going to become status quo, just like we didn't have a 40-hour work week in the 1890s, we had 60-hour work weeks and we had child labor. So we're a long way from having the pillars of a progressive society that you could even start to argue there shouldn't be supersession. Just because there's a minimum wage in place, that's only one of several pieces that should be there for really a fair labor market.
Good evening, my name is AJ, I'm from Santa Monica College, I'm a student there. Ms. Harris, you said that the CPI was going to be used to calculate
22 is from the LA ordinances. At that point, the minimum wage would be indexed. So if there's a high level of inflation, it would track accordingly.
And the CPI does not include housing, food, right?
It's consumer products.
Well, it doesn't. CPI includes housing and food. I've got bad information then. Anybody here make minimum wage?
Well, I used to.
1%.
Until recently.
And anybody here under the age of 53 that expects to get Social Security? All right. At present, I do believe that Social Security is scheduled to run out about 2030 or thereabouts. So for me, I don't expect to get Social Security, and I'm paying into it now, and I don't really like that. The parties that are impacted by the increased minimum wage are employers, employees, and government. And of the three, government is the only entity that actually benefits through higher taxation. So I encourage everybody to find alternative ways to increase people's wages instead of playing the banker game. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the endorsement.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm from Mondo Taco. I love my employees. They make great food for you. And that's why I came to Santa Monica, opened my restaurant about 2 years ago, to make people happy with my food and to take care of my employees in a manner that they can have a life outside of work and enjoy the work that they do. Problem is, I'm not a banker. And I have a small business and I want to continue to run it. So there's got to be some kind of compromise here where small business can operate and we don't have to charge $7 a taco because I'll be out of business and then my employees will have a job. They'll find a job somewhere else, maybe not a job with somebody as nice as me. So I like to think I'm nice. But I do pay them a little bit more than minimum wage because I want them to continue to work for me and make great food for you. What concerns me is that a big business or a steakhouse can absorb these costs where a small business cannot. So what are we going to do? I think it needs to be tiered in such a way that businesses that have a certain amount of revenue or a certain amount of employees or are part of a big corporation maybe kick in a little bit more, the banker type of businesses. And you can still have your small businesses and you can still have your tacos and hopefully my tacos. So I appreciate the support in not trying to put small businesses out of business. And I know that the Restaurant Association, the people that I associate with, we love our employees and we love you. And we want it all to work for you, the city of Santa Monica. Thanks.
Other comments, please?
I think it's really telling that there's only one minimum wage worker here, and that's a little sad. I work with people who earn below the minimum wage, car wash workers, and I want to remind everybody that they're tipped workers and the definition of the working poor. When you think about a service charge, I want you to think about everybody that's going to be affected, including outside of the restaurant industry. Nail salon workers, hotel workers, housekeepers, and car wash workers. We have a problem with enforcement in the city of Santa Monica. Every single car wash in this city has been cited for minimum wage violations. Every single one of them. One of our workers came into our door because he wanted to file his taxes, and his W-2 was for $12,500, and he works over 40 hours a week. So we're looking at some pretty serious issues here. I think the minimum wage should be $15.37 in 2021. That's not a problem. 20 for bigger businesses. And I also think that for workers to actually earn that, there needs to be some type of system of enforcement where there's strong provisions and an agency or some type of partnership with the county so that that enforcement can actually happen. It's not fair that workers are working over 40 hours a week and not earning the money that they deserve. Additionally, they should keep their tips. It's the way that some of them survive, to be really honest with everybody. And I promise to bring these workers here next time. I'm really sad there's nobody here that earns minimum wage.
Others would like to comment? Again, yes, sir?
Hi, my name is Jonah Breslau. I'm not a minimum wage worker. I make $10.04 an hour, so I'll be 4 cents above the minimum wage in January, and so I will actually be affected by this law. So it's not just the government, and I feel very strongly about in support of the basic framework that the city is pursuing. It's important that we protect service charges, that we have strong enforcement provisions. Well, I actually am very skeptical of the seasonal exceptions as they're framed right now. And the hotel living wage. I work in a hotel. I think it would be ridiculous if hotels in LA were getting paid $15.37 for the same work that I do, just based on the different politics. So I hope that we'll have strong provisions here, because in fact the hotels in Santa Monica are even more profitable than the hotels in Los Angeles. So I believe that it's very important that we have a hotel overlay. And on the service charge issue, I think there's a kind of dishonesty on the part of a lot of restaurateurs here who are talking about how they want to support back of the house workers. If you want to support back of the house workers, then raise the wage for back of the house workers. And if you're going to tell customers that tipping is no longer necessary because of a service charge, then don't redistribute those tips away from the workers who most customers expect the service charge to go to. So I don't think we should let service charges serve as a loophole for restaurateurs to pay the taxes that they have to pay by law. The service charges look like a tip, they act like a tip, they should be treated as tips. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Right, well, I don't want to force people into making comment. We'll be around for a while, city staff, so if you'd still like to ask any questions, we'll be here. You can still provide comment on the write-up boards here, and as I referenced, smgov.net. Minimum wage. Council, it's expected in early January. I think that council date is January 12th. There's agenda process, so I don't want to necessarily commit to a date. I'd say early January, but most...
December, even though at one point we thought it might be December.
The council, as you recall in the debate, wanted it to be heard in December, and as we referenced, we needed to conduct this process, and now we need to take, this is one of several stakeholder meetings that we've been having, so we have a lot of information to sift through, analyze. Obviously, our legal counsel needs to give a lot of legal opinion, and then we'll be drafting the staff report and the ordinances and recommendations with many alternatives, as you can imagine.
Jason, just as far as point of clarification, I know several people refer to it as going to 1537, but the minimum wage proposal right now is to go to 15, correct?
So the question being asked is, there's reference to $15 an hour minimum wage, and there's reference to 1537 minimum wage, and they're actually two different aspects. The $15 an hour is what the minimum wage overall would escalate to by 2020 just through the minimum wage ordinance. The 1537 would be applied to hotel workers, and there's an LA ordinance for hotel workers, and has a variety of names, but that is 1537 for hotel workers, and in concept that would take effect in July. So that would be, really wouldn't have a phase. It would be not necessarily immediately, but much sooner than a 5-year increment process. Hopefully that answered your question. So again, thank you all so much for coming out tonight, providing your input and feedback, and we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.